Hello BookTube, and in this video I'm going to be giving you my review of An Evening's Entertainment by M.R. James, which appeared in his fourth collection of ghost stories, A Warning to the Curious and Other Ghost Stories, published in 1925. On a dark winter's evening, a grandmother tells her grandchildren a nice little tale of murder and occultism before bed. Previously, in videos in this event, I've mentioned the fact that A Warning to the Curious is my favourite M.R. James ghost story. However, An Evening's Entertainment comes a very, very close second. And the reason for that is that M.R. James is clearly, as he's writing this, enjoying himself immensely. It is one of the archest things I have ever read, and it's all the more joyous for that. It has horror elements, definitely. In fact, it has almost sort of lurid horror elements, which are completely unlike a lot of M.R. James stories. It's similar in some ways to the sort of lurid element that you get with the flesh being sucked off the skull of the chap in Count Magnus, but this is over the top goriness with what goes on. And the story that the grandmother is telling her grandchildren is about a man called Mr. Davis who was clearly up to some odd stuff with occultism and a young man. There's sort of suspicions of homosexuality and dark black magic practices and all sorts of stuff. It really is wonderfully over the top and entertainingly lurid, and the sort of archness and the humour of it. And to me, it reads as a really funny story. It really begins when M.R. James is sort of setting the scene for the house where the grandmother is telling the stories to her two grandchildren, who are called Charles and Fanny. And the way that M.R. James does this is that he contrasts this obviously sort of Georgian country squire's home with a sort of Victorian middle class prim and proper home as represented in sort of educational books, the sort of Victorian equivalent of the John and Janet books from the 1950s and 60s. Some of the older people watching this might remember those. And he has this sort of very, very funny, clearly sort of parodic bit of dialogue from one of these, in the style of one of the educational books, and then compares it to this Georgian squire's house at sort of 8-9 o'clock at night when winter's drawn in fast and there's a roaring fire and the squire is on the other side of the room next to the fire, roaring drunk and fast asleep. And one of the way that M.R. James sort of contrasts this is by describing that when the grandmother's saying this about just at the start where he's setting the scene, how Charles and Fanny the children want to be told a story. He has it in brackets, Charles and Fanny, not Harry and Lucy. They would never have stood for it. It's just piling on the sort of humorous elements and the archness throughout. It's really good, and unusual for M.R. James, the luridness, because it's obviously over the top and funny. The luridness just works. It's really enjoyable to me. And so I can highly recommend to read this, especially if you want to laugh, because it's clearly M.R. James writing a ghost story for humorous purposes, and it works really well. Now, An Evening Entertainment has never been adapted to the screen. However, it has been adapted to radio in the 60s by a Californian radio program called Black Mass, who adapted a couple of other M.R. James ghost stories. And whoever did that adaptation clearly loved the story, because it is an almost word for word faithful adaptation of the story. And in fact, in some ways, the radio adaptation is to a degree slightly more lurid and over the top than even the story itself, and it is really good. I will link in the description to a copy of Black Mass's radio adaptation, which is free on YouTube, because it's well worth a read. It really does get in the spirit of the story, and I can recommend both this story and that adaptation because it's absolutely wonderful. Though I've got to say, with the adaptation, the story we would assume, the original Emmerdale story, you would assume is set in England, but the accents of the people in the radio play sort of move across the British Isles, shall we say. That itself just adds to the sort of sheer fun of that adaptation. And so again, I can recommend both, and as I say, I really enjoy this story. So with that, BookTube, I'll say goodbye, and I will see you shortly. Bye, BookTube.